Good morning, everybody. This is Jenny Irvine, one of the WellSteps guides at WellSteps. I'm excited to be here with you guys today to introduce your WellSteps guide, Carly, and the topic for today's webinar. We do appreciate you guys taking some time out of your busy schedules to meet with us, and we are sure that you guys will learn a lot from this webinar. So today we're going to talk about how to fit fitness into your schedule. And Carly Thornton, who is your WellSteps guide for the Fransen Pittman account, will be presenting this information. But before we get started, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. All of the phones and microphones have been muted for this webinar as it is being recorded, and we want to ensure that we do have a good audio quality. So you are not able to speak during this webinar. However, we do encourage you to participate by asking questions or leaving feedback or comments by using the GoToWebinar control panel, which should be on the right-hand side of your screen. And you can leave those comments in the question or chat functions, and then we will be monitoring those throughout to review some of the most frequent questions at the end. So without further ado, I'm now going to turn the time over to Carly Thornton. She has put a lot of time and effort into this webinar, so I'm excited to be able to listen in as well. She has done great work for Fransen Pittman so far, and we are excited to hear from her again today.
Well, thank you, Jenny. Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for taking the time this morning to meet with us. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the big three. And the big three being poor nutrition, tobacco use, and physical inactivity. And when we look at health and why people are healthy and unhealthy, and even differences in lifespan and disease prevalence, those three really are the ones that stand out. And again, they're poor nutrition, tobacco use, and physical inactivity. And there are a lot of other factors that affect health, but when we focus on the big three, it allows us the most room for potentially transforming lives. So today we're going to focus on the what, why, and hows of fitness, and most importantly, why it should be a priority in your life. And to get started, we're going to go through some slides, and you may or may have not seen these before, but these slides clearly illustrate that we as a people have changed. And these slides specifically show how obesity has changed throughout the year. We're going to start out in 1985, and as you see, in 1985, there are a few states that have obesity rates between 10 and 15%. Then we're going to go to 1990, and there's a significant increase in the amount of states that have 10 to 15% obesity rates. If we jump forward again, in 1995, almost 20% of the entire population is obese. In 2000, greater than 20% is obese. In 2005, over 30%. Here's 2010. And the most recent data shows that greater than 35% of the U.S. population is obese. So it's clear that a significant change has occurred in the amount of body fat that we have as a population. And there's also been a change in the amount of diabetes that we have as a population. And this is a different set of maps that shows that change. So in 1994, about 4% of the states were diabetic. Here's 2000. In 2005, we now have some states with about 10% of the population being type 2 diabetic. And to put that in a little different perspective, that's 1 out of every 10 adults walking around had type 2 diabetes. In 2010, there's even more. And in the most recent data in 2013, which is right here, you can see that all the way across the bottom of the United States, greater than 10% of every adult is type 2 diabetic. And this last slide really brings the two maps together. And if you look at the states that have the highest amount of obesity and diabetes and other chronic diseases, you will also see a difference in lifespan. So the dark blue states on this map have the shortest lifespan, and the yellows have the longest. And there's a 12-year difference in lifespan between the yellow and the dark blue. And that's pretty significant. This data is 7 years old, but it illustrates the point that the way we live our lives has a direct impact on the quality and the length of our lives. It really is all about the way we're living our lives. And this slide sums it all up. This is the big three. We asked the question of all the cancers that occur, of all the strokes that occur, and of all the cases of heart disease and type 2 diabetes, what percent of those are due to the big three? Again, those being lack of physical activity, poor nutrition, and tobacco use. And it was found that between 71 and 91% of these things were caused by poor lifestyle. Now, again, this isn't always the case. There are genetic factors and there is environmental factors, but the majority of the suffering and the majority of early forms of death and the majority of the chronic diseases such as these are due to the choices that we made. And this information is crucial to this discussion because it says, again, that the way we live our lives has the biggest impact on the quality and length of our lives. But the great news is that we have the ability to do something about it. So what has happened? We're eating the wrong kinds of foods. Maybe we aren't eating enough of the right foods. We're eating too much food. And really, we've engineered physical inactivity, and there's been an explosion of sedentary leisure activities and also labor-saving devices that really take movement out of the equation. And those are just a few things. Here's a few more examples. In the past, they would hang up their clothes to dry, and now we quickly move the clothes a few feet into the dryer and click the start button. Here's another example. As you can see, there's been a loss of physical requirement. The mower on the top left is a mower that my grandpa used to use, and he still has it. And when he pulls it out, all of us grandkids laugh because clearly things have changed from the top left to the bottom right with that riding John Deere mower that looks pretty nice. Another example is back then we used to grow some of our own produce and work out in the yard and spend hours growing this produce, and now we go to our local grocery store, pick it up, and swipe the card. Then we used to can our own food. I remember every summer my mom would can food, and I remember how much time and effort it took her, but there was nothing better than those fresh canned peaches. And she still cans from time to time, but like most of us, now out of convenience, it's way easier to pick it up at the grocery store. And again, we went from eating canned products to things like Teddy Grahams and Oreos and peanut butter crackers, all those things we're all very familiar with. Also, we just decided to swing by the drive-thru and get the 5 for $5 meal out of convenience. That's what's for dinner. But these things illustrate the change in our environment. And we also aren't moving around as much. Then we used to grab a rag and go out and wash the car. Now we watch as the water and soap spray onto the car as we drive through the car washes. And again, kids used to go out and play. It was horrible when your mom and dad would call you in at the end of the day because it was getting dark. Now there's video games, movies, a ton of things that keep kids inside and sedentary. And this evolution is something that I've personally seen in my own lifetime. Then we have things like the Segway. It's incredible technology, but it completely removes the need for any physical movement. And granted, most of us don't use or have ever used or have a Segway that we use on a regular basis, but this probably looks familiar to all of us. Maybe our Segway is this, or maybe our Segway is sitting on a desk all day. But the point is, we've gone from a population that was more physically active to a population that's more sedentary in just a short amount of time. And what's upsetting and why we're talking about this today is that we all have this physical body that's evolved and developed over time to the one that we have today. And for hundreds and thousands of years, our bodies were designed and evolved in an environment that required some form of physical activity every single day. And when we take that same body and we put it in a sedentary environment, bad things start to happen. We gain weight, our blood pressure goes up, the arteries surrounding our hearts clog up, we develop chronic diseases, and this is mostly because of the way we're living our lives. And not only have we changed, but the environment has changed. It's hard to get physical activity. This is not a safe place to be walking a baby and a child. Some places just simply don't allow for physical activity. And this picture, I think, is great because really the only option here is to go on a very, very short walk or to walk in the street, which again isn't safe, and it makes it hard to get that physical activity. So I hope that I made it clear that there is a problem and that we have changed, and this is unfortunately the new us. Who doesn't love a good cat picture, right? But sadly, this is what we've become. We've become this sedentary group. Now, when we talk about physical activity and fitness, there is a very large base of science that evaluates the effects of physical activity and moving around. And fortunately, we know a lot from these studies that have been conducted. So now I want to show you the why behind and why it's important to have it in your life. And I hope that the following slides give you maybe a little reason to reorganize your schedule so that it can be a priority in your life. So in this graph, we look at the relationship between all-cause mortality, and that's death from all forms, so accidents, chronic disease, infection. So the relationship between mortality and fitness. And on the x-axis, we have fitness, low, moderate, and high. What is high? These are people that exercise 2 to 3 hours a week, or about 45 minutes a day, and they're participating in pretty high intensity exercise. The blue bar is males, and the red bar is females. And what we're looking at here is the difference in deaths per 1,000 by fitness. So low fitness or sedentary people are on the left versus fit people on the far right. And the odds of death are 6 times higher if you're sedentary, 3 times higher for males, and 4.5 to 5 times higher for females. Again, that's 6 times higher if you're sedentary. So there is a dramatic decline in all-cause mortality or death if you move around more often. This next one, if you look at cardiovascular disease and deaths, the difference is even greater. For women, if you exercise a lot, your risk for cardiovascular disease is 16 times lower than if you're sedentary. If you don't move around much, in other words, if you don't move around much, you're 16 times more likely to have heart disease death. And for men, you're about 8 times more likely to have heart disease death. So it's a huge factor in cardiovascular disease. It's not quite as big in cancer deaths, but it's still there, and it's a big one. And we have people all around us that may suffer from one of these chronic diseases. Some that might even pass away from one of these conditions. And unfortunately, a lot of the deaths are due to the fact that we aren't moving around as much. To summarize the science, though, there are mountains and mountains of data on the benefits of physical activity. And like all health topics, there are some that don't show the exact link between physical activity and certain benefits, but there are some really, really good studies that do. And this is what we know. Physical activity does reduce the risk of premature death. It does reduce the risk of dying prematurely from heart disease. Physical activity reduces the risk of developing diabetes and high blood pressure. And if you do have high blood pressure already, it helps reduce it. It reduces the risk of developing certain cancers. And physical activity reduces feelings of depression and anxiety. It helps control weight. It does a lot to help build muscles and maintain bone strength. And this is particularly important for older adults because they benefit from physical activity because it helps them move around without falling. So that's something that's important. It improves the quality of sleep. Exercise just does something to our bodies. It makes it easier to get a good night's sleep. And I don't know if you've experienced that, but I know I sure have. It helps our bodies. It helps reduce stress, and it provides protection against stress. So it's a great stress reliever. It also improves self-perception. Overall, it improves the quality of our life. And these are definitely all things that I want in my life, but if you were to ask me why I find time to exercise, it's because I love the way it makes me feel. And we hear that answer a lot here at WellSteps. When you ask people why they go out and exercise, the vast majority of people who regularly exercise, those that aren't getting an incentive for doing it, they exercise because the way it makes them feel. And I'll be honest, most of the time I don't feel great when I'm exercising. You're sweaty, you're tired, you're out of breath. But after, I feel the effects, and I always feel better after. And there's a huge difference on days that I exercise compared to days that I don't. And that's why I do it. And I'm sure many of you have experienced the same thing. But quickly, let's go over how the whole exercise things work. It's a classic dose response. So on the y-axis, that's how much benefit you'll get from exercise. So if you don't exercise much, you won't get a lot of benefits. And then if you're exercising a lot, you're going to get more health benefits, better sleep, less chronic disease, etc. On the x-axis, we have 3 levels of fitness again: low, moderate, and high. The curve looks like this. In other words, the more fit you become, the more benefits you're going to get, but there is diminishing return. For example, let's say you're sedentary. You come to me and say, I don't get around to exercising because I don't have a lot of time. And let's say that I'm going to help you get from low to moderate. I'm going to do this by getting you to exercise 3 days a week for just an hour. That's just a moderate increase, but let's look at how many health benefits that you receive just from going from low to a moderate fitness level. You get a whole lot from going to none to some. Now let's say you come to me and you're at moderate fitness level, but you want to improve more and take it from moderate to high. To do that, we're going to, again, you're going to see it from moderate to high, and you're going to see that you don't nearly get as many health benefits, but you're still getting some. The good news is that because of the law of diminishing returns, those with a low fitness level get a large amount of health benefits when they start moving. So highly active people, they still get the benefits that you get from going from low to moderate, but again, it's just not nearly as much. So what does it take to get from low to moderate? And it's simply you just have to move around. You have to get up and do something. And it doesn't have to be high level. So right now we're going to go ahead and take a little stretch break, just a 2 to 3 minute stretch break. If you guys would like to get up and stretch, that's something that we encourage, and we'll start back up in about 2 minutes, okay?
As a quick reminder, if you guys do have questions or comments, or maybe you want to share your favorite tip of how you fit fitness into your schedule, you can always do so by chatting that into your GoToWebinar control panel. Okay, so we are about halfway through our mini stretch break. Keep in mind, you don't have to be doing anything major right now. Just maybe stand up and stretch. You can always reach to the sky and then reach to your toes. That's going to loosen up your back some. Maybe try a lunge or two if you're feeling really brave. You can always get up and walk around the table, or even do some wall sits. So all of those things would be great to do. At this point, we are going to have Carly go ahead and continue with her presentation, but we do encourage you, as you're listening to the presentation, to stay standing, to stay moving at your location, so that you can fit fitness into your schedule.
Perfect. Thank you, Jenny. All right, like I just ended with, again, it doesn't take a lot to get from low to moderate. You just have to move around. You have to get up and do something. It doesn't have to be high level. It's exactly what you're doing, getting up, stretching, doing some lunges. So what is the solution, and why do we really need to get these benefits? What do we need to do to get these benefits? And what it really takes is each week doing 2.5 to 5 hours of moderate intensity aerobic exercise. So again, these are things like walking the dog, going on a quick walk, going out into nature and doing a light hike, things like that. Or you can do 1.25 to 2.5 hours of vigorous intensity exercise. So these are things like biking, jogging, hiking, any activity that makes you breathe hard, that would be considered vigorous intensity activity. Or you can do a combination of both. And this is my personal favorite. You can go out for a nice long walk one morning and then go on a pretty intense mountain bike ride the next. I like combining the two, switching it up. So that's an option. Plus, the other part of the solution is muscle strengthening activities. And you want to do this 2 or more days a week, and you want to include all the major muscle groups. And this one is very important, and it's left out quite a bit, but just 15 to 20 minutes of free weights a day will produce a major difference. So this is the solution, and this is what's going to solve the problem, right? And you may say, well, I have a busy schedule. I do not have time to do this. The good news is that you don't have to do it all at once. You can do it in short bouts. Here's some examples. You can mop the floor. A lot of people don't see this as exercise, but this is a really good way to get your heart rate going. You can use the stairs instead of the elevator. Or you can instead of looking for that coveted parking spot right up next to the door, park farther away and walk in. There's also exercise opportunities at work. Again, try and use the stairs as often as you can. You can also try standing while working, and you may have heard of a standing desk. And there's actually a company now, and I have the website right here, aurastand.co, and this company it's really cool. They made a cardboard desk on top so that you can try standing while you work. And as you see, there's a place for your keyboard and your laptop. And this is only $25, which is very cheap for a standing desk, and it's a great way to see if that's something that you like and if that's something that you want to do. So give it a try. Again, there's that website, and you can go and check those out. You can also walk during lunch breaks, or you can walk while you're on the phone call or during your breaks. That's the thing that I do all the time. Whenever I'm on a phone call, I try to stand up and pace, even if it's just in my small office space. It's just a little way to get that physical activity in. Also, some of you might have time during lunch to get a quick workout in. That's a great opportunity as well. And many of you I know at Fransen Pittman are construction workers, and your work may count as your exercise, which is great, but maybe not every day. So there's other ways to find this physical activity. And there's things you can do at home as well. You can walk a pet. My dog loves going on little walks, and it gets me outside and gets me moving. Again, you can do chores like mopping or sweeping and vacuuming. You can walk after breakfast and after dinner. The thing about Utah, where I live, is there's been a ton of snow, so it's been hard to get out and walk, and I'm sure you can relate in Colorado. But shoveling snow is a great way to get in some physical exercise. Exercise with family members. When you're planning physical activity, like your family activities, try to get some sort of physical activity in there. And we know you have a lot to do. There's a lot of things to balance, and there's work, there's family, sleep time, commute time. But in order to get the benefits of physical activity, you're really going to have to prioritize. Try to find some me time every single day to treat the body the way it was supposed to be treated, and give it a chance to move around and do what it was designed to do. Now, there is another part to this, and this is the best part, and I believe one of the most important parts as well. You have to make it fun. It has to be something that you want and like to do. And if you're going to make it fun and you make it fun, you're going to come back and do it time and time again. So maybe it's going on a walk with a group of coworkers or friends or a spouse, and this turns into a social event. It's fun when you get out. In the summer, I love going out and walking with my cousin a few times a week. We take the dogs, and it doesn't feel like exercising at all. We're just having a good time walking the dogs out in the warm sun. Take advantage of things you might have, like bikes. Take the dusty old bike out of the garage and take it for a spin. Maybe there's walking trails in your areas, and you like getting out into nature. Take advantage of those. Maybe it's a game of golf. I'm not very good at golf, but I know a lot of people that are and love it, and that's a great way to get out and get moving. You can play with your children and your grandchildren. This is a great way to get out and do things that incorporate just everyday things that you would normally be doing, incorporate movement into them, play with them, get out and do things with them. There's a lot of snow in Colorado. Take a day to get out on the mountain. When I've gone snowboarding or skiing, I don't go out to prevent diabetes or cardiovascular disease. It doesn't even cross my mind at all. But I go out because it's fun. So go out and try something new. Have fun and make it a priority, and make it something that's normal and that's something that you want to do for you. So in conclusion, I would just like to end with this statement. If exercise were a medication, it would be the most beneficial drug ever invented. And I truly believe that. When we prioritize and get exercise into our lives, the benefits are extraordinary. So with that, I'm going to toss it back to Ginny for some questions. Ginny?
Thank you so much for that, Carly. That got me excited and ready to go take a break from my workday and go outside for a little while and get moving. So we did have a few questions come in, and the first one I think is really important. It's definitely something that we all need to be mindful of. But someone asked, how do you continue to find motivation? And I'm sure they're specifically thinking in relation to exercising.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great question. And that's kind of funny because that's something that I've personally struggled with, and it's something that I've had to overcome. Finding motivation is hard, but um, what you need to do is, again, find something that your reason behind it, why you want to do it. For example, for me, I finally found my motivation because I wanted to be healthy and have a good pregnancy. I'm 7 months pregnant, and I wanted to have a good pregnancy be healthy and have a good labor, and then after be physically fit as well. So that was my motivation, and I'm sure it's going to change because it has to change. Life changes, things come up, but that's been my personal thing. Is I find what's been motivating to me. I change it up. I make goals. I keep it flexible because life's ever changing. So again, you just have to look inward and find what's going to motivate you to do this. Jenny, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, the last thing I wanted to just say is that, like you mentioned, it is going to change and it is going to vary. So Carly showed some pictures just previously that showed great examples. There was someone on a paddleboard, on a bike, hiking. There are so many different ways that we can find exercise and to just continually have that flexibility and variation, whether we try a Zumba class or a yoga class or rock climbing. There's a myriad of things that we can do. So I encourage you that when you are struggling or maybe you're not really feeling very motivated, to try something new, get outside of your comfort zone and try something different that will get you moving. Okay, the last question that we had, it is more of a logistical question, but someone wanted to know, um, since this webinar is being recorded, where is it going to be posted in case they wanted to view it again?
That's a great question. We're going to post this under the links tab in the reward section of your program center. It'll be posted there, and you can click on that link and watch it anytime, or if you know of anyone that was unable to make it to the webinar today, they can look at that as well, and that will be for sure posted by tomorrow morning. So that's where you can go to find that, again, under the links tab and rewards in your program center.
Perfect. Well, we do not have any further questions. Thank you all again for coming and joining Carly and I today. This was a great webinar. Carly, thank you so much for your preparation and presentation for this. As you do have questions or anything, please feel free to always contact Carly, your WellSteps guide. Her information is displayed on any of her emails that are sent out as well as within the program center. So she will be happy to answer any questions that you guys have. And we hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you.